So what brings me here today is the rollout of 5G technology. We know people are already getting sick from the lower frequencies, and we expect, that is our scientists expect, that these higher, ultra-high frequency microwaves are going to bring people to disease quicker and in a more intense form. So there's a new wireless technology, 5G. So right now we're at a lower frequency, like 1 to 3 gigahertz. This is now 24 to 90 gigahertz. Just to put that in perspective, 90 gigahertz is 90 billion electromagnetic waves per second hitting and going through your cells every second. That is far from natural. Your heart has a circuit, has electricity to it. Your brain has electricity to it. It's about 8 to 10 hertz. This is billions of times more than what's natural. And 5G is being forced on us. In California, SB 649 is going to make it so they can put one of these transmitters in front of your house. And 5G doesn't travel very well because it's very dense. And so they have to put a transmitter about every 2 to 10 homes. And they're not going to ask you about it. They're just going to put it in front of you, exempt from any health, safety, or environmental review.
On streetlights.
On streetlights, on poles in front of your house, on any kind of fixture that can get what they want, and it's not going to be your choice. There's not going to be any consent, and I got to tell you, it's not a very American thing to do, and these bills are stripping away your constitutional rights to protect yourself and your families. Now, this is a big problem because we know that cancer rates around regular cell towers are about 3 or 4 times what they normally should be. We also know that there's neurological symptoms that increase as you get closer and closer to a cell tower. Now, these new transmitters are going to be placed close to people's homes. It's going to be continuous exposure as with other cell towers, but it'll be emitting a much more higher frequency, high intensity wireless radiation.
Yeah, there are 600,000 cell phone tower sites in the United States. They're everywhere, on the sides of buildings, streetlights, water tanks. But Team 10 learned thousands of those towers violate federal rules that are supposed to keep workers safe. Benjamin Rivas has worked on cell phone towers for 14 years.
I was dealing with them day in and day out. Depression, and I get headaches from time to time, and mood swings and stuff.
From what I hear, they're putting off radiation like you wouldn't believe. As you can see, this one right here. That's what they are. 5G microwave death machines. I mean, whatever they are. They're not telling us what they are, and they appear to pop up overnight.
This is one woman's experience of living on the top floor under cell antennas for 2 months.
It started with my daughter. She initially got a rash on her leg that was sort of unexplainable, and when she was trying to explain to me what it felt like, she kept saying it was kind of funny because it wasn't hurting inside or on the skin. She said it was hurting in the skin. And then a few days later she got another rash on her arm, and then another small kind of stranger rash, and it was the same thing. And then one day in the kitchen she was holding something and she dropped it because she said it felt like the blood in her hand went cold and in a wave along her hand to her fingertips, and then her hand stayed numb for about 15 minutes.
Do not review this technology and do not speak on its safety. The American Cancer Society has never done a study on this and receives huge donations from the wireless industry. What they don't tell you is that the FCC guidelines do not cover children. They do not cover pregnant women. They were meant for short-term exposures. And this is incredibly important, and they're leaving out this facts. The organizations that set these standards, the IEE, are all scientists that were hired and from the wireless organizations. The FCC chairman is now the former main lobbyist and CEO of the Wireless Trade Organization. He is pushing this program for a very clear reason. He wants to push this program because he wants to have free reign in deploying cell tower transmitters all over this country and avoid the zoning process and public input. There was no public input because the design of this program was to prevent public input.
They're popping up outside bedroom windows and school campuses, despite objections from across the country.
5G can be a tremendous boom to California, but only if it can be put up quickly and easily.
Hayward Assemblymember Bill Quirk co-authored legislation that would make it even harder for cities like Piedmont to object to a tower.
You wouldn't have to go through the Planning Commission, through the City Council.
The former NASA scientist says he may resurrect the bill recently vetoed by the governor.
I know scientifically that putting up these cell phone towers is safe.
But the International Association of Firefighters disagrees. They began opposing cell towers on fire stations after firefighters complained of health problems.
What's also important for people to understand is the FCC is dominated by the wireless industry itself. And the FCC are the people that are given the responsibility and privilege of regulating wireless radiation human exposure standards. So unfortunately, the FCC, whose chairman, who just left and they change with every administration, was the former main lobbyist and the former president of the wireless trade organization CTIA. So the agency that's been given the responsibility and privilege of maintaining and setting our human exposure standards for wireless radiation are the people who profit and benefit from the proliferation of wireless technology and the transmitters that empower it.
Do you not realize what is in store for people right now? Do you realize what they're doing with this stuff? Do you realize what this stuff does? These towers are weaponry. These systems are weaponized. We are being herded into the compact cities and they're putting the towers in. Now they're going to be putting in the microcells instead of these huge towers that are already in place with power generating systems the size of shipping containers next to them, with cables 4 to 5 inches in diameter capable of handling hundreds of thousands of volts, what, for 5 watts of power? Are you freaking kidding me? These people, tell your kids we're overpopulated. These people that run things like Mr. Gates, Prince Philip, Mr. Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, all these people talk about how to reduce the population to 95% down from what it is right now. We are in the midst of a silent war. They're not going to fire a shot, folks. They're going to cook you. And they're going to do it with invisible radio frequency emissions.
It's a $100 million MTA project full of secrecy, with 18 of these for the tunnels and bridges. So what are they exactly?
Are you saying you can't comment to me?
That's the MTA's man in charge of bridges and tunnels, Cedric Fulton, dodging our questions.
Here we are on the roof of an architecture firm in this beautiful space that this person lives in. I'm going to show you the first thing right here. Stay back. Radio frequency energy may exceed exposure limits. This person just found out recently that they have cancer, and they've actually been helping their son for the last year or so, who's 25, who also has cancer. And I'm going to show you what is behind this building, and I'm really shocked. So here we go. Here's this door. And we're gonna just step in here very briefly because it's really intense in here. So this is cell phone towers.
They continue to go up. Why?
Residents are demanding answers tonight, demanding to know why dozens of cell phone towers are quietly appearing on their streets with no explanation and no notice.
I think we're so concerned about it because they're not telling us what they exactly are, and they didn't notify us prior to them being installed.
This is emitting radiation, and no one has answers for us.
This needs to come down. This is a bus stop. This is too close to residential homes. This should not be in a residential area.
But this goes way back. The 1996 Telecommunications Act that was passed in 1996 by Bill Clinton had Section 704 that banned by law looking at health and safety when they put cell towers in. This is how they built out the whole network. They've known about health effects for decades. The military is using these frequencies at 95 gigahertz. And remember, they're talking about 24 to 90 gigahertz for this as a biological weapon for crowd control. So on the one hand, the FCC is saying it's completely harmless. On the other hand, the military is using it as a biological weapon. Somebody's lying.
It's possible to entrain a certain percentage of a population, apparently, with weak magnetic fields.
Joined the Royal Navy in 1960, and I specialised in microwave warfare. Radar, obviously, which uses microwave, but they don't just teach you radar, they teach you all about microwaves and other uses. So I understood about microwave warfare and how it can damage people, how it can harm people. Microwaves then were used as weapons, as they are today. It is a perfect stealth weapon. And when governments don't like a group of people, for instance, the ladies who protest at Greenham Common in England about the American missile base they camped, they were microwaved. We microwaved Catholics in Northern Ireland to make them sick. It goes on all over the world. And it's a weapon that you don't know you're being targeted because the dose is very, very low, which is actually more dangerous than a high dose. It's very, very low, and it may take a year or two, but you can cause neurological damage and cancers with low-level microwaves, and you can make all your opponents sick. It's a perfect weapon for a government.
This is a Soviet LIDA machine. It transmits low-energy radio pulses between 0 and 100 cycles per second. In the Soviet Union, LIDAs have been used for years to tranquilize psychiatric patients without physical contact. This sound, which is received by shortwave radios in the United States, is generated by another Soviet radio frequency device. It is known as the woodpecker because of its tapping noise. It is broadcast by a number of high-powered radio transmitters operating deep in the Soviet Union since July 4th, 1976. Some scientists suspect that the woodpecker is designed to interfere with human brain function.
As far as I'm concerned, the potential that this has for producing a direct psychoactive effect upon the total American population is there. Has never been disproven. The signal range within which the woodpecker operates is that which has been reported by many investigators to produce a tranquilizing effect upon animals.
We are just incredibly sensitive to these magnetic stimuli.
Clearly, our scientists, along with the other groups I work with, which are composed of people who are developing wireless health effects from their various sources. For instance, people developing brain tumors from their cell phone and the radiation emits, people developing neurological symptoms from the Wi-Fi, from school Wi-Fi, people developing neurological and cancerous health effects from simple smart meters being little wireless meters that are put on people's homes so that people don't have to come by and read the meter themselves manually. So regardless of the source, and cell towers are the most powerful source of wireless radiation emissions, regardless of the source, the health effects can be the same.